Yes, yes ma'am.
Yeah, please start. Chinmay, please start the session.
Sorry ma'am, I didn't get.
Yeah, I said please start the session. It's already 11. Participants have joined in.
Okay ma'am. So I'm visible ma'am.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So good morning everyone. I'm Chinmay Gundara, interning with the Nature Sci. Welcome you all to our today's webinar on the magic of pollination. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce my team members present here. Ms. Priyanka, Ms. Pragati, Mr. Gokul and Mr. Dibanjan, and the rest of the organization. The Nature Sci powered by the Wildlife Park is a group of nature enthusiasts who wish to share their knowledge and experience with the world. They strive to bring informative and educational content from the tiny living world to the city dwellers. Its motto is to empower environmentalists everywhere, which aims to create opportunities for budding environmentalists, people related to this field, and also the ones who want to join it anew through its various offline and online programs. This webinar is one such attempt within the training and internship program, which we are a part of. There are several such events in line as well. Now, coming for our today's event, the magic of pollination, or simply the term pollination as we call it, is very essential process, as we all know, that takes place in the floral world, which ensures the continuation of the essential cycles in shaping new lives and sustaining the life forms. So, about our today's speaker, Ms. Prateeksha Dabulkar. So, Ms. Prateeksha is an assistant professor in botany. Currently, she is working at the Government College of Arts, Science and Commerce, Sankulim, Goa. She is a nature enthusiast and a hardworking individual. She has completed her post-graduation in botany at Goa University. She has conducted various professional development workshops centered on the learning goals, classroom management, and student motivation at the school level and the state level. She has also served as the resource person for Goa Science Lecture Series 2022, organized by the State Higher Educational Council, Directorate of Higher Education, Goa, in association with the Science Colleges in Goa. She has also worked as a coordinator under the Directorate of Higher Education on the Disharpo project. She undertook projects and received appreciation for the project title, The Study Effects of Chemical Fertilizer and Organic Fertilizer on the Growth of Green Ground, or Vigna Radiata, and presented it at the National Conference on Frontier in the Biopesticides and Biofertilizers at PESS, RSN College of Arts and Science, Pharmagudi, Goa. She is also an active member of the organization like the Aranya Environmental Research Organization, AERO. And now I request all the participants to keep themselves muted. If you have any queries, please type them in the chat box. We will take up all the questions at the end of our session. So attendance sheet will be shared with all the participants in the chat box. We all request you to fill the attendance sheet, because the ones who will be filling the attendance sheet will only receive the certificate for this session. Thank you. And now I hand over the session to Ms. Prateeksha.
Well, thank you, Chinmay. And I thank the Nature's Eye organization for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I also thank the audience for participating in today's webinar. And I really hope that you all are going to enjoy this session today. I hope I am audible to you. Hello?
Yes, Prateeksha, you are.
You're audible.
I can't share my screen because okay.
Now try.
Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, okay. So, hello everyone. I'm going to start my presentation by giving an overview about the flower morphology. So, a typical flower consists of 4 whorls. Out of these 4 whorls, 2 are essential whorls and 2 are non-essential whorls. When I say non-essential, I mean that they do not participate in the reproduction process, and they include the sepals and the petals. The main function of the sepal is to protect the flower when they are in the bud condition. And the main function of the petal is to attract the pollinators. Now, when I say essential whorls, I mean that these are the whorls which will help in reproduction process. They are mostly the male reproductive part, that is the stamen, and the female reproductive part, that is the carpel. The carpel is made up of 3 things, that is the stigma, the style, and the ovary. And inside this ovary lies the ovules. When you see a typical stamen, it is made up of a stalk-like structure, which is called as the filament, and the anthers. Inside this anthers lies the pollen grains. Now, pollen grains are so tiny that most of the time they look like white or the yellow dust. They range from 15 to 200 microns in size, and they are the vehicles of the genes, male genes in plants. These tiny creatures are coated by, these tiny creatures have got a thick coating of sporopollenin, which protects them from desiccation. Different species have got different size and shapes of pollen grains, and they are designed in such a way that they are going to fit into the stigma of the same species. It's just like the lock and the key mechanism. In the adjoining figure, you can see how this different shapes and size of pollens are there. Some are round, some are in triangular form, some are linear, right? Now, so far we have spoken about the sepals, petals, and the stamens. Now coming to the stigma. Finding a stigma in the plant is extremely easy. We follow the stalk of the flower, that is the pedicel. We get the next layer, that is the ovary. There is this style, and right at the center, you get the stigma. Now, the main function of the stigma is to receive the pollen grain and retain them. Now, each flower has got different size and shapes of stigma. Some can be glandular, some can have folds, some can be, slightly hairy, some can be little like a cap shaped. So different species will have different shapes and size of stigma. Now, whenever a pollen grain falls on this stigma or has landed on the stigma, the color of the flower becomes intense, and it starts releasing more of its fragrance to attract their pollinator. If you see, I've selected the most common example which we see every day, that is the hibiscus flower. If you observe closely, the hibiscus stigma has got fine hair on their surface, and this hair traps or helps these pollen grains to adhere. You can see in the figure, you can see in the picture that this hair has trapped the pollen grains on their surface. So now coming to the next part. So once the pollen grain has landed on the stigma of the flower, it is very bulky. Okay, so as a result, the entire pollen grain cannot penetrate inside this style which is there. So what happens at this surface where the pollen and the stigma interacts, there are many biochemical and physiological changes occurring in the in this area. And what happens is the stigma will start releasing some exudates, some sugary substances, which is going to soften the outer layer of the pollen, and there will be a germination of pollen tube. This pollen tube now penetrates into the style and carries the two nuclei, a male nuclei or the sperm nuclei within them, and it takes them to the ovule region where the fertilization will occur. Now, suppose in a flower, this is the ovary, and inside this there are ovules. Suppose there are 10 ovules in the flower, then 10 pollen grains need to fall on the stigma and need to do the fertilization process in order to get the seed. Okay. Now, the most common example which I can give is the pea pods. If you have noticed that in peas, not all you won't find all the seeds in the pea pod, right? Sometimes you will see that they are missing. Now the reason for that is because suppose there are 10 ovules, then maybe 9 pollen grains have fallen on the stigma and done the fertilization, and there is a lack of 1 pollen grain. So that is why that seed must have not fertilized. Now, after fertilization, what happens is these are the ovules inside, and this outer structure is the ovary. So after fertilization, the ovules will develop into the seed and the ovary will develop into the fruit. So you can see there are 2 ovules. So apple will have 2 seeds and the outer covering will be the ovary. To summarize, let us understand the maize pollination. Now, maize is a monoecious plant, which means male and female will be present on the same plant. Now, the upper portion is the male inflorescence. We call it as the tassel. And in the axils, you will see the female inflorescence, right? So what happens when the anthers are matured, they will release the pollen grains, and these pollen grains will be caught by the silky stigma, and from there the fertilization will occur. So stigma and style are this only over here. See, if you see this picture, this region is the stigma, this entire thing is the style, and this is the ovary. So entire this outer structure is the ovary, and what we eat, these kernels, what we eat is nothing but the ovules. So for effective fertilization to occur, these pollen grains need to fall on each and every stigma and do the fertilization process. Now what happens is that in nature, you won't get a perfect corn kernel. Okay, in order to get a perfect corn kernel, you need to do hand pollination to that. Fine. So this what you see, the perfect corn kernel which is there, it is hand pollinated. In nature, you will find something like this. Okay. So if you have noticed, then the corn kernel, the upper surface of the corn kernel, mostly do not contain the seeds, right? That is because the pollination, the fertilization has not occurred at this particular stage. Just below this surface, you will see that there are seeds which are pollinated, which are fertilized, but they will be abortive. They won't be very healthy, right? Now, the reason for this is because there can be many reasons, like there can be environmental stress, there can be a lack of nitrogen to the plants. Okay, many reasons will be there. Moving on to something called as pollination and its type. Now, there are two types of pollination, self-pollination and cross-pollination. Now, what is self-pollination? Whenever there is a transfer of pollen grain, whenever there is a transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of the same flower, we call it as the self-pollination. And whenever there is a transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of another flower, we call it as cross-pollination. Now, when you see this, this is a pea flower. It is a self-pollinated plant. You will see that in most of the cases of self-pollination, there is an advantage that the flowers need not be very attractive, or they need not spend their much energy on producing nectars. They the pollens which are there, they are transferred within the flower itself, and no external agent is required. Okay, so now what happens is some plants are very smart. So they keep two options ready for themselves. So ye nahi to wo, like that. So this is a this is a plant of Commelina, and Commelina has got two types of flowers. One, which are underground, are called as clistogamous flowers, and the ones which are in the air, above the surface, are the chesmogamous flowers. Now, clistogamous flowers, there is a condition called as clistogamy, wherein the flowers do not open at the time of fertilization and they do not expose their sex organs. So, the self-pollination will occur underground without being exposed. And in chesmogamous, these flowers are very showy. Of course, they are small in size, they are showy, and they can attract the pollinators. So in some cases, when the pollinator is not there, then even if these flowers are not pollinated, then they have the option kept ready for themselves to increase their progeny. See how smart these plants are. Now, coming to the cross-pollination, as I have already mentioned, that it is the transfer of pollen grain from the anther to the stigma of another flower, but they both should be of the same species. You cannot do cross-pollination by taking apple pollens and fertilizing it with mango. Okay, it is not possible. So both the species should be same. To explain cross-pollination, I would like to explain two types of flowers first. That is a generalist flower and a specialist flower. Now, I want the audience to interact with me. Just look at this picture and just comment what can you interpret from this picture. Hello, I'm audible, right?
Yes, Prateeksha, you're audible. Participants can write their answers in the chat box as they are not allowed to unmute themselves at the moment.
Okay. So are they typing something? Pollination
Yes,
via different animals. Okay, somebody said pollination via different animals. Okay. Anybody else wants to give a try? Bees and butterflies help in the process. Okay. Same flower. Yes, perfect. Okay, I think Saloni, in this we can observe many species of insect pollinating rather than a single. Yes, very good, perfect. So exactly, you all have come exactly to the point. Now, in a generalist species, what happens is all sorts of pollinators visit this type of flowers. Okay, now there are certain characteristics of this generalist species. That is the floral structure which is there. It should be open and should be accessible to all the pollinators who come and visit them. Okay, and very importantly, they should be very strong. Now what happens, like moths, butterflies, they are light in weight, so it's fine for them. But when we talk about wasp and the bees, what happens, they are a little bulkier. So if the flower itself cannot withstand their weight, then there is no effective pollination taking place over there, right? The bee might get an impression that I'm not suitable for this flower, and it might not come and visit that flower again. So that is basically a generalist flower. And generalist flower should have or should produce large amount of nectar. Okay, and now what happens, suppose in the morning the moths are the butterflies are coming and feeding the flower, then it shouldn't be that the nectar is getting over in the morning hours only, right? Because bees might come in the evening, and if they don't find the food over there, then they might not visit that plant again. So in short, generalist flower should have a large amount of nectar. They should be strong enough, and the floral structure which is there should be flat and should be accessible to all the pollinators visiting them. Now, one of the advantage of this generalist flower is that they attract very many pollinators, and the disadvantage is that the pollens which are there is mostly wasted. Or what happens if this is the flower, the butterfly is pollinating this, then and this butterfly is going and sitting on other flower. So if it is not of the same species, that the pollen over there is wasted. So in short, to summarize, they decrease the pollination efficiency. Okay, coming to the specialized flower. Now, specialized flowers, they have to fulfill the requirement of the pollinators. Now, in this case, I have taken the example of a bat pollinated species. So in this bat pollinated species, what happens is the flower, you can see that there, it's a very liquidy and liquidy kind of flower, right? Too much of nectar is produced by this flower. So this specialist species have to produce strong odors for the bats to get attracted, strong musty odors or fermenting type of odors. Then they should have a proper shape so that the bat can easily come and take their food. Then the pollens which are there should be in ample quantity, and the flower color, it should be dull and mostly white in color or light greenish in color, so that the bats, of course the bats cannot see the this flower, but then they can easily get attracted to the flower by with their fragrance. Okay, so bat pollination is basically called as chiroptophilia, wherein and bats are very effective in their pollination because they can carry pollens over a long distance, sometimes maybe up to 30 kilometers also. Okay. Then one more thing. The advantage of the specialist species is that they help in effective pollination, and the disadvantage of this species, this specialist flowers, are that they mostly are dependent on the climate change. Okay, so if the number of flowers decrease in that particular year, then the pollinators might starve and might die. Okay, so they are indirectly related with climate change. Now, as I have said that plants and pollinators are completely dependent on each other, the best example I can give you is of the fig tree and its wasp. So it's like, the fig is saying to the wasp, we are always together forever. Ye dosti hum kabhi nahi todenge. Okay. Now, I'm sure, just like how we see hibiscus flower, rose flower, then sunflower, okay, you might have not seen any flowers on the fig tree, right? So there is a famous meme sort of given by artist Rohan Chakravarti. You can see over here that the flower is saying, do not touch the flowers. and the bird is confused, like what, where are the flowers? Okay, so again there is a famous phrase saying that जिस दिन अंबर पे फूल लगेंगे उस दिन बात करेंगे, right? So जिसने भी ये लिखा है शायद उनको पता नहीं कि अंबर पर भी फूल लगते हैं. Okay, so this whatever you see over here, they are nothing but they are sessile and unisexual flowers, and the figs have a characteristic inflorescence which is called as the hypanthodium. So the inner surface, all this what you see are nothing but the flowers. Now, to understand the fig and the wasp relationship, let us first understand the fig flowers. Okay. Now, fig flowers there are three types of flowers. Okay, male flower, and there are two female flowers. So in order to avoid confusion of saying two female flowers, we give the name as the long styled flower as the female flower and the short styled flower as the gall flower. Clear, right? So male flower, gall flower, and the female flower. One thing to be noticed over here is that each ficus will have its own specific wasp. Now, suppose if you are considering the people tree, then only the people wasp will come and pollinate the people tree and no banyan wasp. Okay, so people tree will have a specific wasp, banyan tree will have a specific wasp, the normal fig plants will have a fig wasp. Fine. Now, we knew now we have understood the flowers in the flowers of ficus. Now let us understand the wasp. So basically there are male and female wasp. Female wasp is easy to identify because it has got a long ovipositor and it has got wings. Whereas the male wasp are smaller in size, approximately 2 millimeters, and they have strong teeth. Okay, now only the female wasp can enter into the fig and not the male wasp. Okay, the entry is restricted only and only to the female wasp. Now, in order to understand the pollination, you need to, imagine like there is a female wasp who is carrying a lot of eggs in her belly. Okay, so we start our journey by imagining that there is a female wasp, by understanding that there is a female wasp who is carrying the pollen grain, or sorry, the eggs. So what happens? How do this fig wasp find the fig tree? So over here, the plant plays an important role. So the plant will release some of the pheromones which will attract the female wasp towards this tree. Okay, the fig tree. So once it finds the journey, once it finds the tree, the level 1 of that game is completed. Okay, so now we move on to the next one. The fig wasp will enter into the fig fruit. Okay, so now what happens is the ostiole or the opening of this fig is so small that sometimes the female wasp will lose its antenna. Okay, so once it enters after successful entering, after it has successfully entered into the fig, what happens is she releases some of the antiseptic to just cover this particular hole which is there. Okay, so once it has covered, it is like a lockdown for them. Okay, so it's like bahar se koi andar nahi aayega aur andar se koi bahar nahi jayega. Fine. Now, once she has entered, imagine this fig, imagine the female wasp has entered into this fig fruit. Now, once it enters, it accidentally starts laying egg in all type of flowers. Okay, it starts laying egg. It comes here to this flower. It drops it deposits the eggs which are there in her belly over here. Now, in this condition, what happens? Since it is a long styled flower, the female ovipositor which is there, it cannot reach the long style, it cannot completely reach the long styled flower. So in short, what it does is it starts laying egg in the gall flower and indirectly starts pollinating the female flower. Okay, so once it has laid the eggs, here now again there is a balance. Okay, there is a balance between the laying of eggs and the fig fruit. Now what happens, the female wasp cannot be very greedy, it cannot continuously keep on laying eggs. Okay, in that situation what happens, that the since if she keeps on laying eggs, the weight of the fruit becomes heavy and the tree starts aborting that fruit. Okay, so we should make sure the female wasp make sure that she has laid eggs and also she's doing the pollination. Now, after she has laid eggs, some of the females, due to the exertion, will die. The eggs which are laid will soon reach to maturity, and initially the female wasp will come out. As I have told you that the male wasp has got strong teeth, so it is going to start chewing the gallflower and will try to come out. You can see over here. Okay, now what happens is when the female is when the females were entering, okay, when the female were entering the fig fruit, they already had pollens on their surface, right? And they were carrying eggs in their belly. So when they are coming out, so what happens? So there's so this region is called as the oestiole, that is the opening. So when the males they emerge out, they are going to they are going to do two things. First is they are going to mate with the female and impregnate them. And second thing, because they have strong teeth, they are going to make passages either from here or somewhere from here. They are going to make a passage so that the female can move out. Fine. And during that process, the male wasp also dies. So in short, the male wasp cannot the male wasp never sees the outside world. Okay, it dies inside the fruit itself. So when the female wasp is trying to emerge out, these are the male flowers. So when you see the fruit, these are the male flowers and female flowers are down. Okay, so when the female wasp is trying to come out, the pollens over here get dusted on the body and she leaves the fruit. So so we started our journey by saying that it has got it has got eggs within their belly and pollens are on them, right? So again the journey will continue. Again the female wasp will go and find the tree. The tree will help the female wasp to come to get attracted towards themselves. So we say that ficus is a keystone species. It is ecologically important species because it harbors many of the animals, right? Animals, insects. So it is our ancestors might have thought about all these things and must have protected this ficus species. That's why we now can, because of our greed, we now have we don't think twice before cutting a mango tree, but we think 100 times before cutting a people tree. Okay, now coming to water pollination. This is the most common example which I have selected, that is the Vallisneria species. Now, Vallisneria is it is a submerged aquatic plant, but it exhibits a highly interesting example of ephydrophily. Okay, now this Vallisneria is a dioecious plant, meaning male and the female flowers are separated. The male so what happens is, on attaining maturity, the male flowers will get detached from the plant and will float on the water surface. And the females are also born underwater on a slender stalk. Okay, as the female approach maturity, this particular stalk will begin to elongate, and thereby it pushes the flower upwards to the water surface. Now, once it reaches the water surface, a change in the position of the flower from vertical to horizontal take place. Okay, so if it is going like this, once it reaches here, it is going to go like this, horizontal. So the horizontally placed flower will start exerting pressure, which will result in a small cup-shaped type of, um, depression, okay, around the female flower. And what happens, this male flower will start floating towards this depression, and the anthers will start to release their pollen. And this pollens, which are then transferred, will get exposed to the stigma, and after pollination the stalk of the female flower again undergoes a coiling, and down the and it will go down and pollinate the flower. Fine. So underwater, the surface fertilization and the fruit formation is completed. Now, coming to the plant pollinator interaction. So just like how I'm interacting with you by talking, plant and pollinator should also communicate, right? The way I'm communicating with you, plant and animals should also communicate. And their communication is basically based on the color, based on the fragrance, and based on the chemicals. There's a famous saying, ki color lies in the eyes of the beholder, right? So each and every pollinator has got a specific range of colors which they prefer, right? So the bees will prefer yellow, blue, purple, and some ultraviolet colors. Butterflies will prefer red, orange, yellow, pink color. Flies, green, lime, white, cream color. Carrion eating flies, maroon and brown color. Hummingbirds with red, orange, purple. So if you want to have a garden which attracts most of the butterflies, then you make sure that the plants which you have in your garden are of red, orange, yellow, pink color, right? Now, this is again a very common example which we all have seen, that is of the Ashoka flower. Now you can see that there are two different colors over here, that is the yellowish color and the red color. Again, I want you to interact with me and tell me, why do you think this plant produces two color? Why it is spending so much of energy on these two colors, on giving one bunch of flower two different colors? Audience? Audience, to attract pollinators, to attract more insects. Okay. Okay, any idea what it will indicate? What this red color and what this orange color will indicate? It is because it attracts two different kinds of insects, especially butterfly and bees. Okay. Okay. My audience is quite interactive. Okay, so basically it's like the plant is helping the pollinator. Okay, so the yellow color says ki baba, I have got lot of nectar, you please come and visit me. Okay, the orange color indicates ki I have got nothing, you please don't come to me. So the insect or the pollinator who is visiting this flower is going to come directly over here, and it is not going to spend its energy going and pollinating to all these flowers. So plants, simple strategy hai. Plant says jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai, like that. Okay, so jo yellowish color which is there, it is saying ki baba, you come and you pollinate this flower, don't go elsewhere. Okay. Okay. Another example is of the Indian screw fruit, that is also called as the murad sheng. So you can see that, here on day one, the flower shows bluish green color, right? At this stage, the nectar which is there is very sticky, and it is going to attract most of the butterflies and the bees to come and consume this nectar. So once that happens on day 2 or on the day 3, this flower color changes to orange. At this stage, the nectar is not very sticky. It is going to be in a slightly semi-solid way. And at this stage, the birds and the other small birds are going to come and pollinate this flower. Another interesting example is of Madhumati, which is also called as the Rangoon creeper. You will see that there are 3 different colors over here, right? So Madhumati, when it blooms, when it is in the white first color which is there, that is the white one, initially the bees will come and pollinate. Next, in the evening, hawk moths will come and pollinate. Next morning, what happens, from white, it is changing its color to slight light pink. There, some butterflies will come and pollinate. And after that, it is going to change its color to dark red. At this stage, many other species of pollinators can come and pollinate this flower. But red is an indication that no much of the nectar is left within me. Okay. So it is like a generalist species. So koi bhi aa jao, pollination hoga hi hoga. Okay. Now, very interesting example of another example, that is Delonix regia, also called as the gulmohar. Again, you can see that gulmohar has got one odd petal. You can see over here this odd petal, and see the nature has designed itself in such a way that the stamens and the stamens are placed just above this odd petal, right? So it is like a platform, just like how we have a runway for the alloprene to land, right? It is just like a runway for the pollinator. So it is going to come, it is not going to waste its time by going and seeking at each and every petal to find the nectar. It is going to come, land on this odd petal, and it is going to go, and this odd petal is going to take the pollinator directly to the nectary area, right? So in this while, the stamens which are here are going to release the pollen on the back of the insect. So when this insect is going out and pollinating another flower of gulmohar, the pollination is completed, right? Next is the very common, and I like this personally, I like this flower a lot because it gives a very innocent look, right? So there is a famous poem on Champa also, that is Champa tujhme gun hai teen, rang roop aur baas, अवगुण तुझ में एक है कि भंवरा आए ना पास. Can anybody tell me कि भंवरा यहाँ पर क्यों नहीं आ सकता और क्यों नहीं आता? Okay. Yes. भंवरा यहाँ पर क्यों नहीं आएगा? Audience, smell. Because so you're saying because of smell the pollinator won't be coming, is it? Okay, anybody else wants to give a try? Okay, let me tell you. So this plant lacks nectar. Okay, it doesn't have enough nectar. That's why no pollinator feels like visiting this flower. So what this flower does is it releases a strong smell to attract the pollinator, and the pollinator, see, basically what happens, any pollinator, you can lure them with two kind of things. One is the food and one is the mate, right? So these flowers will release some fragrance, indicating that, just giving an idea to the pollinator कि I have lot of nectar. So ये like उल्लू बनाते हैं उनको. Okay, so this if you just happen to visit this plant at the night, you will see that there are a lot of moths which are present near this flower. So what happens is कि this plumeria secretes a lot of fragrance which attracts these hawk moths, and they have got a specific antennas. Okay, sphinx moths especially are going to pollinate this. They have antennas which are going to pollinate this particular flowers. Okay, so as I mentioned, two scents lure the animals. One is the food and another one is the mate. So I have got an interesting example of Ceropegia. I call it as the kidnapper plant. So mostly this Ceropegia ensures a fly trap type of mechanism. Okay. So what happens is these flowers are going to exude a pungent or a decaying odor which attracts the flies and exhibits a very remarkable trap modification. Okay, so the flowers have a long perianth tube expanded to the base, and this base will harbor the sex organs. So when you see this, when you see a cross section of this flower, you will see that the plant, the perianth tube has got this deflexed hair, okay, which facilitates the entry but prevents the exit. So now what happens is when the fly is attracted, it is over here, it's just like the slide, okay, it's very slippery. So fly directly slips and falls into this, what you say, this sex organs which are there of the plant, okay. Uh, so what happens once it falls over here, the insect tries to move out, okay. So in that process it does its pollination, and during on the next day, if the insect has done successful pollination, then this hairs will turn upward and will allow the outflow of that particular insect, okay. It will allow the insect to go out from this particular plant. But again, it depends on, if the pollinator is not quite healthy enough, okay. And in that struggle, if it dies, then it dies, okay. Otherwise, it's like, kidnappers bhi kya karte hai? Once you give them the amount, they will release, right? So similarly, if the pollinator pollinates it, then it is going to get released, fine. Otherwise, it gets trapped over there itself, okay. Coming to the next example, that is pollination trap in water lily. So in water lily, what happens, in right at the center over here, there is a nectar pool and there is a stigma near it, okay. So in the evening, the plant is going to secrete a lot of nectar, and it is going to attract their pollinator. So once the pollinator comes over here, the nectar is very sticky, it gets trapped in this particular nectar pool, okay. So once it gets trapped, it it has its own struggle of moving out, right? So see, always when you're talking about pollination, you have to imagine that you have to climax pehle imagine karna padta hai, okay. So you have to imagine that the insect who is coming will have pollen on its surface and is just coming for the food. So imagine there is a insect who is having pollen grains and is coming here for the nectar. So once in the evening, when the nectar is there, the pollinator is also over here, and in the evening the plant tries to close, right? When it is trying to close, the stigma will also come closer, and the pollens which are there on the pollinator is going to get dusted on the stigma, and the flower color is going to change. As I have already mentioned, whenever there is a pollen which has landed on the stigma, the flower color becomes intense and there is a release of fragrance, right? So at this stage, what happens, now the flower has closed, okay. Early in the morning, what happens, all the anthers are have all the stamens, sorry, have come together, and the nectar pool which is there, which was sticky, is now reduced, okay. Now reduced. So now what happens, the anther, the fly is going to take this as the platform, come out and go, okay. So when it is coming out, again the pollens get stuck on their body. So again in the evening, same story. Coming to the last part, that is the buzz pollination. Now buzz pollination is basically it is said that because the bees make those buzzing sound, there is the release of pollens from the stamen. I have a short video to explain that. Okay. So you can see over here that it looks like this particular insect which is there is, sorry. Okay, so it looks like this particular insect is chewing that stamen, and the pollens are falling on the on that insect's body, right? But it is not so. You can see these are the pollens which are falling on the body of the insect. So there, sorry, I don't know, it is getting hanged. Can you all see the video? Some it is getting hanged.
Prateeksha, can you try again?
Yeah, it says not responding, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll try.
Sure, sure. You can stop the sharing the screen and you can
Yeah. Okay.
Till then, if the participants are having any questions, they can write them down in the chat box. Also, one attendance sheet is shared with all the participants in the chat box. Those who have filled it can ignore it, and those who haven't filled it yet, please fill it, as you will receive your certificates on this mail which you are gonna put in the attendance sheet. Okay.
Can you see the screen?
Now, yes. Exactly.
Okay. So there was an experiment which was done, and this was the solanaceous flower, maybe the brinjal flower. The tungsten rod was kept near these flowers, and it was kept at the same frequency of the buzz of the bumblebee. Okay, so you can see that it is not because the insect is coming and chewing it, but it is because of the frequency of that buzzing sound the pollination is done. This is the stigma wherein the pollens will fall over here and the fertilization will take place. Yes. So all the photographs which I had taken is from the internet source, and they are subjected to copyrights. And it was all for educational purposes only. Thank you so much. I hope you have enjoyed the presentation. Yes, is
Thank
there
you,
any?
Pratik.
Yeah.
All the participants, now you can unmute yourself for your questions. You can also write your questions in the chat box. Prateeksha, there are a few questions in the chat box.
Okay.
Would you like to read them?
Muted everyone. We cannot respond. Okay, so is saying that you have muted everyone. You cannot respond.
Now I have given them the
Okay.
permission of
Yeah. Now it is okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello, Prateeksha. It was a nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Only you could replay that last video again from the beginning because it was hanging.
Yeah, sir. Sure.
Make it full screen and
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So can you see
we're able to see. Make it full screen.
when I make it to okay, yeah, I can do it.
Yes, now we can see.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Thank you, sir. Miss, red color flower indicates that it has less nectar. Yes. Are you talking about the Ashoka flower? Saloni? Yes. Okay. Yes. It indicates that it has got no nectar as such. The male unisexual have nectar. Samartha, are you what? I did not get your question. Ma'am, can you tell about pollination by lizards? Oh, no, sir. No, I don't know. Who am I talking to? No, I'm sorry. I don't know about it.
I think the question Samarth asked is, do the male unisexual flowers, they have nectar?
Male unisexual flowers have nectar. Okay. No, see, what I can get is right now about coconut flowers. Okay, they are unisexual flowers. Male and female are separated. But when you see this male flowers, they have a strong fragrance. Okay, nectar तो नहीं है, लेकिन fragrance है. Strong fragrance is there.
Okay.
So, what are the questions? Any more questions, participants?
If participants have any more questions, they can write in the chat box. They can also raise their hands, unmute themselves, and ask directly. There is one question by Rutu. Pollination through air means hairy pollen travel through air. Apart from this, is there anything about...
What can you, ma'am, can you please repeat?
Sure. Pollination through air means hairy pollen travel through air. Apart from this, is there anything about this concept?
The moment we say pollination by air or wind is anemophily. So wind is the main factor over there which will carry out the pollination. Okay.
Yes, of course. And I believe if there might, the pollen will not be heavy. Sorry. Okay. I thought it was heavy. It's hairy pollen. So.
Okay.
So we have one more question. So Prateeksha, they're asking, why do the top of few ovules of corn cob are always unfertilized? Do they lack stigma?
No, they have stigma, but there is no effective pollination taking place, fertilization taking place over there. Okay, see what happens over there. There might be many factors. Maybe the pollen, the nuclei might enter the pollen tube, but it might fail to reach the ovule region. Okay, so there can be many possible factors which are playing a role at that particular region. But if you do hand pollination, you get corn kernels over there also.
Okay, so if anyone else have questions, they can type in the chat box.
I think there is one more from Saloni. Can you tell about pollination in Parijat flower? I think it's Parijat. If I'm wrong, please.
Yeah, so they are basically bisexual flowers only. Male and female will be present in the same flower. And same type of pollination you'll see, like how I have given the examples before.
Okay. So I don't see any more questions, and since no participants is unmuting themselves, so we can move to the end of the session. Chinmay, please take over.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I would like to thank Ms. Prateeksha speaker for a wonderful and informative session. Now we all would like to have a group photo. If the participants are comfortable, they can switch cameras.
I will be taking the group photo, so I'm giving a minute to all the participants to switch on their camera. Okay, adjust yourself, and thank you for the wonderful messages which are coming in. Prateeksha, thank you so much for this wonderful session.
Thank you,
The
ma'am.
participants are really happy.
Congratulations, Prateeksha.
Thank you, sir. I'm very happy to see you, sir. You are
Yeah.
like my motivation in it.
I'm in Dubai now.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so now I'm going to take the picture. Just give me a second. If anyone wants to switch on the camera, they can. Taking the picture in 1, 2, 3. Just give me a second. I will say that. Yes, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye, Prateeksha.
Bye, sir.
We'd like the participants to stay for a minute if it's possible. There are a few announcements and a feedback form. If you can fill it, we will be very glad. Chinmay, please announce.
Yes, ma'am. So as we are to the end of our session, now I humbly request of the participants who have not yet filled the attendance sheet to fill it now. I request Ms. Priyanka to share the posters. Ms. Priyanka?
Is it visible?
Yes, it is. Thank you. So, as are everybody able to see the poster?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are very glad to inform all the participants present here that we are coming up soon with a wonderful workshop on advanced wildlife filmmaking techniques. All the participants present here who would be filling the attendance sheet and getting the certificate will have a special discount for a workshop. Now I kindly request all the participants to fill the feedback form for the session. And we also have 20% discount for our upcoming workshop for all the participants. And our original price is rupees 899.
No, it's 999, Chinmay.
Okay, sorry, it's 999.
Okay, thank you for this announcement, and you can visit us at the Nature's Eye website page and also to the admins of the group, or you can reach out to us at info@thenatureseye.com. Thank you for joining.
Thank you all for joining us for today's session.